The banyan tree stood tall, its branches creating a canopy that sheltered us from the scorching midday sun. Buddha sat cross-legged, his presence radiating calmness, drawing disciples and wanderers alike to seek solace beneath its embracing shade. "Tell me," Buddha said, his voice gentle yet profound, "what does the breath teach us about the nature of existence?" I hesitated, gazing at him. "Master," I said, "the breath rises and falls, much like the tides of the restless ocean." He smiled softly, acknowledging my words. "Indeed, the breath mirrors impermanence, the truth that governs all life," he replied. "Just as the ocean ebbs and flows, so too does the essence of our being," Buddha continued, his tone serene. Another disciple, a farmer named Devadatta, spoke hesitantly, "But Master, why does accepting impermanence feel like losing a piece of ourselves?" Buddha turned toward Devadatta, his eyes filled with compassion. "Impermanence is not loss," the villagers murmured, leaning closer to hear every word from the Buddha. "Master," one of them asked, "how can we discern if such a creation brings harm or benefit to our lives?" The Buddha clasped his hands together, a gesture signaling unity and contemplation. The farmer lowered his gaze, contemplating. Buddha gestured toward the banyan tree. "Look closely at this tree," he instructed us. "The leaves fall in autumn, but new ones sprout in spring," Buddha said, his hand tracing the branches above him. "Life cycles endlessly. To cling to the present moment is to resist this natural order," Buddha remarked thoughtfully. Buddha instructed us to observe our breaths, breathing in the lessons of impermanence, breathing out illusions of permanence. Each inhale revealed how fragile life felt. Each exhale reminded us of the wisdom embedded in letting go. One disciple, a poet named Shanta, pondered aloud, "Master, can impermanence ever guide us to lasting peace?" Buddha gazed at Shanta with gentle understanding. "Peace arises when we see impermanence not as an enemy, but as a teacher," he said. Another monk spoke, his voice edged with doubt. "But Master, what if the intention is pure, yet the tool brings harm unintentionally?" The Buddha turned to him and said, "Even a farmer planting rice may trample hidden sprouts of wildflowers. This is the wisdom of acceptance," Buddha said. Another disciple, young and eager, questioned, "How can we cultivate such acceptance in our chaotic lives?" "Master," Buddha replied, "begin with the breath, for it is the doorway to understanding life's transient nature and finding tranquility within." He paused, allowing us time to reflect, before continuing. "Close your eyes." The villagers exchanged glances, realizing their daily tools carried unseen weight, molded by their choices. "Master, how shall we guide our hands when doubt clouds our judgment?" Another disciple asked earnestly. The Buddha closed his eyes briefly, as if reaching into the depths of the collective human experience. "Ask 3 questions of your heart," he advised, his voice resonating. Together they form life's continuous melody. My breathing steadied, as did my awareness, anchoring me amidst the fluid currents of time and space. A merchant raised his voice from the back of the crowd. "But Master, what if our world demands progress, even at the cost of suffering for some?" The Buddha turned towards him, his expression unwavering yet imbued with compassion. "It is the liberation from false attachment to permanence, the embrace of life's fluidity." A sense of calm washed over me, a serenity born from surrendering to the truth Buddha revealed. "Impermanence is neither tragic nor joyous," Buddha whispered. "It simply is, neutral, ever present, inviting us into its rhythm." The Buddha continued to address the crowd. "Each moment you hold a tool. Pause and reflect on its purpose." The banyan tree, witness to countless lessons, swayed, leaves whispering secrets only open minds could decipher. Breath merged with thought, thought dissolved into silence, silence blossomed into understanding, mirroring the cycles Buddha had shown us. When you resist impermanence, you resist life itself, Buddha said softly, his words holding a clarity that transcended all doubt. The farmer Devadatta looked up with newfound clarity in his eyes, releasing his resistance and embracing Buddha's wisdom. Our suffering is born from clinging, Buddha said, his voice steady. Freedom is born from understanding and embracing impermanence. Buddha gestured toward the river nearby, its waters flowing ceaselessly. Do you think this river fears its own movement? The disciple Shanta nodded thoughtfully. Master, the river flows not from resistance but from surrender to its path, she mused. Precisely, Buddha said, and we too must flow. Like the river, embracing impermanence as the essence of life. Inhale the lessons impermanence offers you, Buddha instructed, and exhale the fears that bind you to illusions of permanence. Each breath connected me more deeply to the cycles Buddha illuminated, guiding me toward profound peace within. Buddha turned his gaze to the horizon. Bathed in golden light, impermanence is not an obstacle. It is the path itself, he declared. His words echoed in my mind, their truth reverberating like the sound of a temple bell carried on the wind. The breath reveals the essence of impermanence. Through it, you shall transcend the illusions that cloud your soul, Buddha taught. We meditated as twilight descended, each breath lighting a candle within, dissolving fear and awakening peace. My heart opened, shedding layers of resistance, embracing the wisdom Buddha shared with a clarity that felt eternal. In his presence, I learned to root myself in today and let tomorrow arrive unbidden. Another day. The sun rose softly, painting the sky in delicate hues, as Buddha and his disciples entered a lively marketplace. Buddha stood, his figure illuminated by moonlight, his presence profound. Carry the lessons of breath and impermanence, he said. If one knot frays, the web falters. He lifted a single thread from the net, showing its frailty alone, yet its strength when woven into the whole. Technology, too, forms such webs, binding minds, thoughts, and actions. A disciple asked, Master, if the web of technology connects all, how do we ensure it binds us in harmony, not division? The Buddha smiled, his expression soft yet resolute. The air smelled of wet earth, and the sun filtered through the trees, casting fleeting shadows. Silence lingered between us, peaceful yet expectant, a space waiting to be filled. Eventually, I asked him, Master, why do we find it so difficult to see clearly amidst suffering? He stopped by a small brook, its water clear but full of floating leaves, and gestured toward it. Look at this stream, he said, his voice steady and gentle. The water is pure, yet it carries debris. His gaze met mine, serene and unwavering, as though he was seeing through me. Life is like this stream. Its nature is pure, but it collects impurities as it flows. He bent to pick up a leaf from the water, holding it between his fingers as it dripped. Suffering clings to us like these leaves, clouding our perception, but the essence of the stream remains untainted. The Buddha straightened, letting the leaf fall back into the water, where it swirled before drifting away. You must learn to see the water beneath the surface, he said. Only then will clarity emerge. We continued walking, the sound of the brook fading as the forest enveloped us in its quiet embrace. He paused again by a tree whose trunk was split, its wood exposed and gnarled. What do you see here? He asked, pointing to the damaged tree. I hesitated, unsure of what he sought. A wounded tree, Master, I finally replied, uncertain. His eyes softened, and he rested his hand lightly on the bark. Yes, wounded, he said, but also alive, resilient, still reaching toward the sky. He turned to face me fully, his expression both tender and profound. Do you not see? He asked. Your suffering is the split in the trunk, but your spirit is the tree reaching upward. His hand brushed the bark as though it held something sacred, a truth only he could see. The wound does not define the tree. It transforms it into something unique, something beautiful. We stood there for a long moment, the forest alive with the chirping of unseen birds, the rustle of leaves. Then the Buddha began to walk again, and I followed, my thoughts racing yet calm, like the brook we had left behind. As we emerged into a clearing, he pointed to a cluster of wildflowers growing in the sunlight. "Notice these flowers," he said, kneeling to touch their petals lightly. "What makes them bloom so beautifully here?" I crouched beside him, examining the soil and light. "The conditions are perfect, Master," I said, feeling slightly proud of my observation. He smiled faintly, a fleeting curve of his lips that seemed to hold infinite meaning. "Yes, the conditions," he said. "Just as suffering requires its own conditions to arise." He cupped the flower in his hand, its vibrant color stark against his worn palm. "When we cling to suffering, we create fertile soil for it to grow. But we can choose to nourish joy instead." His words sank into me like rain into dry earth, each one awakening a quiet realization. So we have the power to change our conditions. "Master?" I asked, my voice tinged with awe. He nodded slowly, his gaze on the flower as though it held the universe within its petals. "Yes, but not by rejecting what is. Embrace all things, even suffering, and transform them into wisdom and compassion." We lingered there, the flowers swaying gently in the breeze, the sun warming the earth beneath our feet. The Buddha's presence was like the air itself, essential, unseen, and sustaining. I felt an unfamiliar lightness, as though a burden I hadn't known I carried had been lifted. Later, as evening fell, we sat by a small fire, its warmth a comfort against the encroaching chill. The Buddha stared into the flames, his face illuminated in flickering light. "Do you see the fires dance?" he asked, his voice soft but resonant. "It consumes everything it touches, yet it also provides light and warmth." I nodded, captivated by the way the flames moved, alive and ever-changing. "Fire transforms what it consumes," I said, eager to show that I understood. He smiled, but it was a smile that held the weight of immeasurable wisdom. "Yes, and so does suffering," he said. "It can destroy, or it can illuminate, depending on how we hold it." He picked up a small stick and held it above the flames, letting it catch fire. As the stick burned, he placed it gently on the edge of the fire pit, where it smoldered but did not turn to ash. "Like this stick," he said, "we can be touched by suffering without being consumed by it. We must learn to hold it lightly." The fire crackled, its sound both sharp and soothing, filling the silence that followed his words. I watched the burning stick, its edges glowing, its center untouched, and felt a surge of understanding. "But how do we learn to hold suffering lightly, Master?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly with the weight of the question. He looked at me then, his eyes like deep wells of compassion and truth. "Through the breath," he said simply. "The breath teaches us impermanence, patience, and presence. It is the bridge between body and mind, the anchor in the storm." His hand rested on his chest, and he closed his eyes for a moment, his breath visibly steady and deep. I mirrored his posture, my own breath uneven at first but gradually settling into a rhythm. The fire's warmth seemed to mingle with the breath in my chest, a gentle reminder of life's fragility and strength. With each breath, he continued, his eyes still closed, "We release what no longer serves us and invite what nourishes the soul." When he opened his eyes again, the fire reflected in their depths. I felt as though I were seeing him anew. "Suffering is not our enemy," he said, his voice like a song I had always known but never heard. "It is our teacher, guiding us toward the truth of our own resilience." The fire burned low, the night deepening around us, the stars emerging one by one in the vast sky. The Buddha leaned back, his posture relaxed yet dignified, his presence an anchor in the sea of night. I felt a profound peace settle over me, a quiet knowing that the journey ahead would be both challenging and beautiful, and as the fire dwindled to embers, I realized that the lessons of the day would remain with me, not as burdens but as blessings. The Buddha's words had planted seeds within me, seeds that I knew would one day bloom like the wildflowers we had seen. And in that moment, under the starlit sky, I felt a deep gratitude for the path I walked and the guide who walked beside me. Another day, the sun was setting, painting the sky with hues of amber and crimson. As the Buddha sat by a lamp, the disciples gathered around him, their faces eager yet contemplative. As the small flame flickered gently in the evening breeze, the Buddha raised his hand, signaling the beginning of a teaching that would forever alter their understanding of life. "This flame," he said, his voice steady and calm, "is both fragile and enduring, much like our existence itself." He leaned slightly toward the flame, observing its dance with an intensity that drew everyone into its rhythm. "What sustains this flame?" he asked, turning his gaze to the disciples, the question rippling through their minds like a stone in still water. Sariputta spoke first, his voice thoughtful. "The oil and the wick sustain the flame." "Master," he said, confident yet open to correction. The Buddha nodded, a faint smile gracing his serene face. "You are correct, Sariputta," he said, his tone encouraging yet probing deeper. "But the flame also needs space to breathe, for without air it would wither and die." His gaze shifted to the younger disciples, inviting them to consider the interplay of these elements. "So too does our life depend on a delicate balance," he continued. "A harmony of body, mind, and the world around us." He picked up a small twig and held it near the flame, careful not to extinguish it. "Now watch," he said, as the twig caught fire and transformed into glowing embers. "This twig becomes part of the flame, yet the flame remains unchanged," he observed, his voice imbued with quiet wonder. "This is the nature of impermanence. Things change, yet something essential endures." The Buddha placed the burning twig into a small vessel of sand, extinguishing it with a single deliberate motion. "And yet," he said, "even that which endures eventually fades. To cling to permanence is to misunderstand the nature of life itself." The disciples sat in silence, the weight of his words settling over them like a gentle but insistent rain. The Buddha gestured toward the lamp again, inviting deeper contemplation. Buddha nodded, his gaze warm and reassuring, acknowledging her courage. "The strength of a community lies not in its wealth but in its willingness to uplift one another," Buddha remarked. "To live fully," the Buddha continued, "is not to resist the inevitable but to embrace the present moment with open arms." He then led them into a meditation, guiding their breaths in sync with the flickering flame, teaching them to find stillness amidst change. "Breathe in," he said, his voice a steady anchor. "Know that you are part of this ever-changing dance of existence. Breathe out," he continued. "Release the need to hold on, for freedom lies in letting go." As the meditation deepened, the room grew quieter, the flame's gentle glow the only movement in the gathering dusk. He addressed the villagers once more, his voice gentle yet resolute, instilling courage within their hearts. "Hold fast to this lesson, for interconnectedness sustains and guides you through the uncertainties of life," Buddha said. "For change is the essence of life, and in understanding it, we find our liberation." The disciples opened their eyes one by one, their faces reflecting a newfound clarity, a lightness they had not known before. The Buddha looked at each of them, his eyes holding infinite compassion, as though he saw the paths they had yet to walk. "Carry this understanding with you," he said, "not as a burden, but as a lantern to guide your way." The evening stretched on, the sky now a deep indigo, scattered with stars that seemed to echo the Buddha's luminous teachings. As the lamp's flame finally dwindled and went out, the disciples remained, their hearts illuminated by a light that would never fade. The Buddha nodded, his gaze tender, his words wrapping around the profound expression of her insight in interconnected existence. Individuality ceases yet flourishes. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.